Hello everyone, this is Rachel here, the Modern Shaman. Thanks for being with me for another YouTube Q&A video of the week. If you're new to this channel, I always say that I'm glad that you're here. I am a practicing shaman and psychic and seer. And if you'd like to learn more about what I do, what I teach, then I would love to guide you and direct you towards my website. It's themodernshaman.net. There's a lot of information and resources there about booking sessions with me here in my office or online for seership. I can't even say that. That was hard, legitimately hard. Seership sessions, which are like psychic sessions, but we can go forward in time or backward in time in terms of your past life or future probabilities, as well as remote viewing. So it's a little bit more in-depth. And those of you guys that are wanting to develop your psychic awareness, I teach psychic development master classes and shamanic energy healing practices. All of that's available in my masterclass teaching curriculum, which is a cumulative module-based online learning program that I've had for years, been teaching it for years, but it is a great resource if you are wanting to get further developed in your own intuitive gifts and sacred arts. I would encourage everyone to feel truly empowered by all that they hold within themselves and are capable of. Okay, I am also announcing, I announced this last week, but I am having another event that I would love to invite you all to if you are anywhere near San Antonio, which is where my home office is located. I am having and hosting a powerful event with a great friend and fellow practitioner who does biodecoding. This is on April 14th, and we are holding a kind of modern take on a soul retrieval ceremony where she is going to speak the language and biodecoding kind of information that moves into this sacred awareness of the body and being able to speak and hear and language trauma within your organs or the systems in your body, your nervous systems, and so forth. And then I am going to guide a drumming and chanting ceremony that will cleanse out and bring back aspects of your soul that you may feel like you have given away or have vacancy, have been taken from you, any aspects of the soul that may need retrieving that arise from that ceremony. So it will be a powerful, powerful time of transformation. All right, let's get on with the question this week. This one was sent in from the YouTube channel as like it was basically like a comment on a previous video, but she said, Rachel, thanks so much. I want to know, how do we know which type of intuition is our strongest? This was like I said, a video response comment on the channel. So finding out which type of intuition is your strongest really is just another way of having self-awareness and gaining self-knowledge. So it's a bit like learning about yourself and recognizing traits within yourself that you identify and you can resonate with. So let me break down a little bit. I'm sure I have many videos on this and I teach this in my psychic development class, but let me break down the 6 identified and kind of validated psychic senses. These were identified in the 70s by the US government when they validated the psychic phenomenon and did a lot of research in parapsychology. This is when they were funding the Secret Stargate project and doing more specific government-funded programs in remote viewing. They got pretty serious about the psychic phenomenon, and so they began to put some money behind the research, and they identified 6 standard or typically recognized psychic senses. The first of which is claircognizance. And I'll just go through them, and I essentially want you as the viewer to ask yourself, which of these do I resonate with? Most of you will resonate with multiple of them, but one of them you'll be like, yes, that's me. I do that all the time. And that would be what I would say is your strongest intuitive trait, your strongest psychic sense. Most of us have a dominant psychic sense, and then we have other supportive psychic senses that come in to help interpret and understand what it is we're receiving as communication from the non-physical realm. So claircognizance is the psychic sense of knowing. And this is typically the hardest one to validate and get confirmation of, because it's just something we know. We don't know why we know it, we know it. It is the underlying communication that feels almost like a soft knowing. It's not necessarily information. It's a subtle awareness of something. So a common thing that comes up if you have claircognizance as an active psychic sense is someone will be talking maybe about a relationship, and you'll just know how it's going to end. Like, that's not going to work out. Or, oh man, that is the one. That's going to work out really well. Same thing with jobs. Somebody may be talking about a job, and you just have this knowing of how that job is going to pan out in their life. A lot of times people say, I can just read people, or I can just read situations. This is claircognizance. It's another way of explaining it. Same thing. It's a sense of premonition and knowing about something in a subtle awareness. Sometimes it's knowing when you pick up the phone who's about to call. You hear the phone ring, you don't even have to look at the caller ID, and you just have this knowing of who it is. That is claircognizance. It is also sometimes called a gut feeling, but it's not so much like a feeling, it's a knowing. It's a mental awareness in the subtle bodies of our non-physical communication. So that's claircognizance. That's one recognized and identified psychic sense. The second one is clairvoyance. And this is typically what we think of when we think of psychics, because it's what's portrayed in media oftentimes, where we see visions. But this is very internal, okay? And it happens so intuitively that we always, I don't want to say always, most of the time we don't recognize it, or we think of it as our imagination, because it's the same awareness. It's the same space as our dream, right? When we are dreaming at night, we're not using our eyes. We're using our third eye, or our psychic sense of clairvoyance. It is the imagery that pops up without using our optical vision. So sometimes it's thinking in pictures. Someone may talk to you about their dog, and you're suddenly seeing in your own mind's eye an image of a dog, a little poodle. And this is my predominant psychic sense. And so you can be talking to me about anything, and I am literally visualizing everything you say. It's coming up with, and I, as a child, never thought to verbalize that, but that is the psychic sense of clairvoyance. It's also daydreaming. It is having very strong vision and images that speak to you in your dream time. It is being able to project through imagery. So sometimes movies have a lot deeper meaning to us. We'll be watching a movie and a scene will just hit our freaking core. Like, I've been there, I've done that, I know that scene. This is also the ability to remote view, to move our vision to places and locations and geolocation, spatial awareness, dimensional awareness, you name it. If you are a visual thinker, typically this is your most dominant psychic sense, is seeing through imagery. Sometimes it's symbols and colors, it's movement. It's not always like scenes when you first develop it. But if you see using imagery and you have the ability to receive information through visuals, then you are clairvoyant. And like I said, it doesn't come like it does in the movies, where someone's sitting there and then suddenly they almost get this lightning bolt of a vision, like, oh, I'm seeing this, and they're like knocked out. It's not like that. It's super, super normal. When I first started doing missing person cases, what tripped me up the most is that it feels so average, right? They'd be telling me about some case and a person they're trying to find or locate. And I'd just be like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of getting the feeling of like wind and trees. And, it's just so normal. And oftentimes, notice how I language that. I'm getting the feeling of trees and wind. This is how our psychic senses work. They overlap one another and they help to express through one another. It's different than our 3D physical senses when they are mutually exclusive or they cancel one another out. I am seeing, and this is what I'm seeing, and I am just seeing this. But in your psychic realm, the feelings attribute to what it is that you're seeing. And so our multidimensional senses work together in harmony and overlap. But typically we will have one that we will language or identify as our strongest, right? Okay, let me move on to the next one. So the third identified traditional psychic sense would be clairaudience. And a lot of time movies have shown this when they show mediums, right? They're hearing voices from non-physical or from dead people, okay? Now, clairaudience is the ability to hear communication from the psychic realm or the non-physical realm. And this also can come in as any type of sound. So sometimes it starts like tinnitus in the ears, or you hear whooshing, or you hear things that aren't there. Oftentimes it is voices or communication, but it doesn't necessarily sound audible. It's just like your internal voice, like your conscience that's speaking to you. And oftentimes when I'm training people in this, they're like, I've heard that voice my whole life. I'm like, yes, you have. You've just never separated it from yourself or asked yourself, is this my voice? Oftentimes the higher guidance or the voice of our guides that's speaking to us through our clairaudience, we have actually misinterpreted our whole life as being our own voice. But then when we start to listen to it, we're like, wait a minute, it sounds like an older man. It's not my voice at all. Or it sounds like a mermaid, or it has a totally different tone, has a different personality even. We may have a very kind of lackadaisical, like whatever, like really chill vibe to our personality. And our conscience, or what we've been calling our conscience, which is actually the voice of our guide, one of our guides, is very direct and stoic and almost militant and speaks to us like, no, I said don't do that. Or whatever. It's not at all our voice, but we've never actually sat down and tried to differentiate what we're hearing through our clairaudient voices. So clairaudience is the ability to hear guidance from spirit. And like I said, it's not always audible. Most of the time it's not. It's an internal voice that speaks and guides you. Sometimes it's subtle. And this is kind of the voice that we speak into in prayer, right? Or in meditation, when we get quiet and we begin to hear. And if you sit with it long enough and practice, you begin to differentiate character traits of the different voices. So if that's you and you recognize that trait within yourself, then you're primarily clairaudient. Okay, the fourth one would be clairsentient, and this is typically the ones who think that they're empaths, right? Feeling. This is the psychic sense of picking up on non-physical communication through your sensory perception. So I sense it, I feel, I get chill bumps, I feel sensations, I feel like something's touching me, prodding me, poking me, hurting me, or just around me. I walk into a room, I feel the density of the negative energy of things that have happened in that room. I walk into a place where there's been bloodshed, war. I can literally feel it in the ground. If this is you, then your predominant psychic sense is clairsentience, okay? Just very, very strong sensory perception. Someone's talking to you about their illness and you'll get nauseous. You feel it within your own body. you are watching something and you have an immediate visceral physical response to it, or emotional response. This is inclusive of our emotional response to things, because that is connected to our feeling in our sensory perception. So communicating through the subtle non-physical energy body that comes through and communicates through senses. And then the fifth identified psychic sense is clairgustance. Now, clairgustance is the actual taste of things that are not there. So this is a lesser known psychic sense, but it is one of the 6 identified psychic senses as being validated by the US government back in the 70s, when they kind of languaged them and set them out. And it is when someone is talking about something, it is essentially being able to taste it, or have your mouth kind of start to salivate, or all of those glands in the back of your throat begin to respond. Sometimes it is the feeling of a taste or a sensation, not necessarily the literal taste of it. So you will get the sense of something tasting like bile when someone's talking about an illness. Someone's talking about death. I used to get this one, and it would taste like rust in my mouth, like a bitter, I don't even know what rust tasted like, but I would get this taste kind of like a bitter, like blood maybe, or rust or something like this. When I would walk by a hospital room where someone was very, very sick, and that was always, even as a child, that was kind of like my awareness that they were going to pass away, or it was very bad, or it had gotten kind of into all of the body. Sometimes we'll taste mucus. It's kind of this response, but it also can be positive. Someone is talking about their grandmother, and I'm tasting cookies. That was like their favorite cookie recipe, or cinnamon, or sometimes it's smoke and things like this. Which brings me to my last one, which is claircentrist. And the 6th psychic sense, claircentrist, with a T, scent, has to do with your olfactic gland. So this is smelling non-physical energy that is not physically present. Oftentimes this is in conjunction with mediumship, where people are speaking to loved ones or ancestors, those that have passed on, and they will use an olfactic memory to trigger us knowing that it's them. So if they smoked a cigar, we'll kind of smell that cigar, and our psychic sense of claircentrist will get activated, and we'll smell those cigarettes or that pipe smell that used to just smell like them, even if no one's smoking in the room, or it's very evident that there's nothing here that smells. Same with a certain recipe that's associated with our past loved one. Our olfactic memories are the strongest trigger for us in the 3D, in our physical realm. And so oftentimes people of the past will use that as a quick way to get our attention, because it's really hard to ignore like a foul smell, knowing that there's like nothing here that would create that foul smell. It's obvious. It's an easy trigger. So if that is you, then your most predominant psychic sense may be claircentrist. And again, all of these psychic senses work together. So when you are trying to identify your strongest intuitive gift, then you would go for whichever one you recognize most in yourself. And then the other ones typically work in harmony to help support that as your primary intuitive ability. So I hope that's helpful to you. If you want to learn more, I would encourage you to go to my website, click on the teaching icon, and look at some of those modules, because I have teaching modules that help just specific psychic senses. So if you recognize when I was talking about it, if you recognize, for instance, that you are predominantly clairsentient, okay, and you're an empath, and you want to develop that more, and you want practice activities and worksheets, then I have modules that give you meditations to help develop that further, regular practice activities, guiding questions. It's like a little workbook type of thing with a video module that directs that. And I have them for each psychic sense, and then practices to how to use them to give readings, to read others, to read locations, and then how to bring about healings with your gifts. So you can go further if you're interested in stepping more into the empowerment of your gift and personally just learning. You don't have to try to be a training psychic. You just may want to learn a little bit more about yourself and what you're capable of. It's just helpful in life. Walking into a grocery store, dealing with your realtor, dealing with a friend, dealing with your children, people that have trouble communicating. So you can read the situation a little better on a deeper level. And I truly believe that we are meant to utilize this capability. We have turned it off, but as spirit in human form, this is our true way of communicating. If we utilized our gifts and powers, we would be a much more functioning human. So I encourage everyone to learn and develop these aspects of themselves just to function on a higher level capacity in our everyday living experience on this planet. All right, I'm going to sign off here. We'll be back next week with another video. Blessings, you guys.